welcome back to another Access League's Guide to Disneyland Paris video, and today we are talking about our top tips and reflections from the trip. So you're going to hear from myself and Beth, you're going to hear from Amali and Cam, and you're going to hear from Lauren, Felix and Fliss about everything that we learned or wish we'd done, or just some general reflections as well as our top tips. So let's start with those top tips. So number one is the Disneyland Paris app. Now, we didn't utilise this a whole lot, but that's mainly because we had Beth and Lauren and Felix, so they could kind of guide us around and we didn't really need to look at a map or timings very much. But I'm going to let you explain a bit more about the app because you have used it on other occasions.
Yeah, so the app has lots on it. The most important thing, I think, for me is the map. So you know where everything is, including like the little meet and greets that you might not know where they are, like the Moana meet and greet. I didn't even know where that was, so we did use the map for that.
That's what it looks like.
And if you are worried about wait times or queuing, it tells you all the wait times for all the rides as and when. So say you're queuing for one ride, you're like, oh, we can go to this ride next because it's only 5 minutes, etc.
Yeah, it's currently 15 minutes for the Cars road trip.
Yeah. So you never know. And also a big thing is when it's rides are closed. So I did use that actually for Ratatouille was closed, so we kept an eye out to see if it was opening up again. So it's very useful for that. You can also book restaurants on there because you can attach your booking to the app as well. So
yeah, you can attach your booking, whether that's your park tickets or your hotel. As I say, we didn't do it because things like wait times aren't really relevant for people with priority passes like we had, and also we didn't book any of the restaurants. But Beth said you can do click and collect. Again, wasn't super relevant because of the priority pass queue lines in restaurants, but you can also buy your Premier Access if you want Premier Access tickets. It even like gives you ideas for activities when there's bad weather and what's good for grown-ups and stuff. So it's got a lot of info on there. Characters and virtual, again, we didn't do any of the virtual queues to meet characters, but that's all on the app.
Like anything you need will kind of be on the app, but because there was a few of us that had a lot of knowledge prior, we kind of just went off what we already knew.
But to be honest, I downloaded it anyway, so I think it's helpful to have it downloaded on your phone, and then if you find you don't really need it, you don't really need it, and if you do, it's there. You're not having to battle with trying to download it in the parks.
Yeah.
And also you can look at it before you go, so if you want to kind of get your head around where things are, as I said, I was just kind of following Beth and Lauren and Felix and Fliss, but if I was going on my own, I definitely would have been relying on that. So I think that's a great first tip.
Yeah.
Tip number 2 is something that we didn't do because even though I'd heard about it, I didn't do it correctly, and it can save you money. So this one is important. And it's called Skiptax. So if you're from the UK and you're visiting France at all, I think it's relevant to other countries, but I'm going to talk about UK and France. You can do this thing called Skiptax where you basically don't pay the VAT. Doesn't count for food and drink, but all your merch purchases it's going to count for. So basically what you have to do is download the Skiptax app, and it will say like start a refund. And you click on there, and basically what you want to do is with that app take a picture of all your receipts, and also keep your physical receipts and the items that you've purchased so that they might check those at customs. But you do that throughout your trip. You put in your arrival days and your departure days, and then when you get to wherever you're leaving from, whether that's the airport or the Eurotunnel or wherever, it'll give you a barcode on your phone to scan, and that means that you can either get your tax back in cash or you can get it into your bank account. Now, I didn't know exactly how this process worked, so what I'd been doing during the trip was collecting all the receipts, and I thought that if you just took them there, you'd be able to do it. And I don't think the woman gave me very good information because I had all my receipts in my hand, and she said, oh no, you have to get a special form at Disney. But that's not the case. You can do it via the app. And if I'd have just sat there for 10 minutes in the Eurotunnel thing with the receipts, then I could have got my money back. So definitely make sure you do that before you go. Download the Skiptax app and make sure you get your tax back, because you're entitled to it. And I'm a little bit annoyed that I had to pay it.
You learn.
Don't make the mistake that we did. Because I don't even really think that Felix and Lauren knew particularly about that, because they must have been loads of times. Yeah. So that's definitely a top tip that we
have learned from.
To learn from our mistakes. And number 3 is go back and watch all the series of videos that we've made, especially if you need an accessible trip, especially I think the ride access video and the full accessibility review, because they're so helpful, because the app's not going to tell you that.
Yeah, very true.
The app will tell you a lot of things, but not the access info. And to be honest, especially if you're driving, go and watch the travel one. You can just watch the vlog for fun.
Yeah.
But if you want an idea of the parks and the idea of the access, the idea of the food, whatever priority passes, go back and watch all the videos in this playlist, all the ones that are most helpful to you, because this is why we've put these videos together, to give you a resource of all the knowledge that we have, so that you can learn from it. So I really hope they're helpful, and if you found them helpful, do let us know in the comments. Do you have any other reflections from the trip, Beth?
I just want to go back.
Yeah, we just want to go back. It was lots of fun. It
was so good.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so much to do there. There's still things that you could go back next time.
Definitely. And I think that was the thing as well. I've had a couple of people ask me, because we were all ambulatory wheelchair users on the trip, and I've had some people that are non-ambulatory ask, is it still worth it to go? And I definitely think it is. If you couldn't go on a ride, there's still plenty to do.
Yeah, there's so much more than the rides. If you're a rides person, great, but if not, there's so many other
the shows, the character meets, the restaurants, the shops. Just sitting and experiencing it as a place.
It's not just a theme park.
No.
And I think if you're not a Disney person, or you're new to Disney, you may just think, oh, it's just like Fort Park or Towers. It is so much more than that. It is about the immersion and the experience. It's not about the rides. So, there's so much more.
Yeah.
Quick little interlude to say a huge thank you to Allied Mobility for supporting this video and for also making this trip possible. We hired one of their Ford Tornio custom Independence wheelchair accessible vehicles, and honestly it made everything so much easier. It's got space for up to 6 passengers and a wheelchair user, and loads of room for bags and medical bits. We ended up with 5 adults and 3 wheelchairs plus luggage in there really comfortably, and it just feels solid and spacious even on long journeys. Plus it comes with a lightweight ramp and powered winch as standard, which is a total lifesaver when you're loading up a power chair. We also loved how you could change the sound system to be louder or quieter in different parts of the vehicle, which made it really useful for Marley, and the road trip was full of Disney karaoke. If you're planning a trip and need accessible transport, Allied offers short-term hire like we did, or more long-term hire, but you can also lease one through the Motability scheme, or even buy one outright new or used. And the best bit, they offer free home demos across the UK, so you can try it out without having to go to a showroom. You can find out more by heading to their website, you'll find the link in the description, or going to @Allied Mobility on social media on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again to Allied for sponsoring this section of today's video, and now let's hear from Amali and Cam on their top tips for visiting Disneyland Paris.
So I was just sitting outside a few weeks after Disney, enjoying the last of the sunshine, having some tea, enjoying being able to wear more autumnal clothes, and I thought it's about time to do some top tips about things that I would do differently next time I went to Disney. And yes, spoiler alert, I'm hoping there will definitely be a next time, and also just talk about some of my favourite bits. So here we go. That sun is trying to blind me. Okay, so my 3 top tips for Disney on reflection. I think the first one is definitely make sure you have spare batteries for your mobility aids if they need batteries. That was a lifesaver for me, and it was something that I did do, but I was so grateful that I did, because it just took away any of the stress of being there and made it so much easier to just enjoy the parks and not have to worry about charging up, charging points and all of that jazz. But at the same time, if I had needed them, I do think that I would have been able to find a plug, like in the restaurants and those kind of places. So I think it's just good to know that they are available, that having spare batteries is like the ultimate peak of being able to go around the park and not really worry about it. Number 2, I think definitely make sure that you always have your emergency bag with you. If I could, would try and find a way to take spare clothes with me if I went again, but at a minimum, as somebody with a stoma and lots of medications and allergies and all the things that go wrong in a day, would definitely have an emergency kit with like wet wipes and spare bags and like the banana shaped strips that I could stick my bag down more easily in humid weather, and all the spares and extras that I could possibly need, because the weather definitely does throw some boomerangs in France. You don't always expect it to change as quickly as it does, and having those things with you again just provide you with peace of mind. And I think that's the key to really enjoying the parks, is being prepared so that you don't spend your time panicking. Number 3, I would make sure that you have some plan in place so that you can be cosy in an evening when you're watching the fireworks. Often by day in France is very, very warm, but then by the evening you can start to feel chilly, especially if you're sitting down and you're in your wheelchair and it's been a long day and you're tired. It's easy to get chilly and start to feel a little bit uncomfortable. So either take something with you. I don't think there was a single day where I didn't have like a cardigan or a jacket with me. But also have a plan if you want to buy a blanket. So I really, really wanted a blanket. I spotted it on the first day. I knew which one I wanted to get. It was my Lot So Bare blanket from my merch haul, and I absolutely loved that blanket. But I had a plan that if I got chilly leading up to watching the fireworks, I would pop into one of the shops and buy it. So always have a plan in place, and then you won't get chilly legs and chilly feet, and you can enjoy the fireworks to their full. If I was to go back to Disneyland Paris, I think what I would do differently is probably make sure I had a gap day in the middle of the park days. So for us, we did 3 very intensive days at the park, but to be honest, by like halfway through the second day I was really flagging, struggling with energy, and could have just done with chilling out. But of course, because you paid for the park tickets and because your friends are there, you try and push through to do as much as you possibly can. But in hindsight, I could have really done with having a day off to just sleep and catch up with myself. I feel like I wasn't missing anything, and then be able to carry on and do a bit more. So I think if I was to go again, I definitely try and plan it that way, so I knew that on at least one of the days I just didn't have park tickets, so there was no way of me feeling guilty or convincing myself to go, and I would just stay at the hotel and just chill out and catch up with myself, because it is a lot. It's a big difference. You might not be going far in terms of travelling, but it takes it out of you, and I think that could really ruin the trip. I feel like we did pace fairly well during the whole adventure, but we definitely were really tired afterwards. So yeah, that's important to think about. If I was to go again, I would also definitely go to Costco. We did that on this trip thanks to Felix and Lauren, and we topped up with lots of bottled water and tea and milk and snacks, and that was so useful because it just meant that I had some of my safe foods while I was away, and obviously Great British Cup of Tea is essential, and that just meant that we had all the options so that we could enjoy it while we were there. And again, part of resting and self-care is making sure that you're properly nourished, that you've eaten enough, and we all get hungry sometimes in the middle of the night or whatever the case may be. So having those bits in place was really useful and something I would definitely do again. Again, as a stoma owner, there are things that you learn in different weather conditions, and this was undoubtedly the first real exposure I've ever had to very humid weather. And that meant that my stoma bag did not want to stick to my skin, which was so frustrating and something I didn't really know how to deal with while I was there. However, coming back, having spoken to my stoma nurses and having just given it some thought, I've realised that the banana-shaped stickers that you can get for your stoma bag that stick around the edges help immensely and kind of stop it coming undone as quickly. So with that in mind, if I was to go again, I would definitely pack plenty of those stickers. And I think as well, I would probably give my stoma team a quick ring before I went, just to run through with them like where I was going, what time of year it was, the weather I might be facing, and just ask them for any tips or tricks or anything that they think might be useful. Sometimes they can give you like trial products to test out, so if you're not sure if something's needed ongoingly but you want it for just one trip, you can ask for a pack of something or for some extras, and I would definitely do that, because the biggest thing that is the worst if you're away is running out of supplies. It would be truly a disaster, so always overpack. In terms of Cam, he really enjoyed the trip, and I know that he got just as much out of it as I did, and overall we have some amazing memories from being there. I think some of the biggest things that he really appreciated was making sure that he had a mobility aid that suited his needs at the time. So Cam used the Rolls Rollator and found it really useful. He knew that standing for long periods of time was going to be a challenge for him, and so in having that and being able to sit when he needed to, take a little rest here and there, really helped him to enjoy his days at the parks and just made life so much easier. The other thing he would do if he went back for sure is to get a lanyard so that he could keep any of the important passes or information in there, so that he had it to hand when he wanted to show it to different cast members. I think when you have mobility aids, it's really easy for you to either end up with lots of stuff on your lap or lots of stuff stuck in your pockets because you're trying to keep it all to hand. So I know different people on the team had different ideas for how to keep things close at hand. Some people had bags, some people used their rucksacks, but I know Cam and I really found it useful to have the lanyard system, so we would definitely recommend doing that. And I think as well, if we went back, the idea of having the gap day really appeals to Cam, and also just making sure that you build in plenty of rest slots during your park days. If we were more able-bodied, starting out as soon as the gates open and spending the whole entire day at Disney and doing it hardcore, back to back non-stop, would be great. But in reality, we have to think about the conditions that we find ourselves with, and we are not able to be up at the crack of dawn, to be at the parks all day long, and to do it back to back for a couple of days in a row and then come home and function. We would both be so unbelievably poorly if we tried to do that. So by building plans to maybe have a later start in the morning, or have a longer lunch break, or take a day off from going to the parks, it just ensures that you're pacing yourself and makes the whole thing more enjoyable. Plus it elongates how long you're away for, which is lovely because it means you've got more to look forward to. So yeah, definitely building in the breaks that you need and making sure that you're not overdoing it is essential.
My first tip for visiting Disneyland Paris is to shop around. When I first started going, I would just book the package that was available on the Disneyland Paris website, which was great because you were staying on site and everything was done for you. But the more I started visiting, I had to look at ways to make it cheaper. And to do that, I now stay off-site. We typically stay at the Radisson Blu because we also use their hotels for work. So then we use the points to get a discount on our Disney trip. So with that, my next tip is to bring your own food and drinks into the park to again help reduce the cost. We used to bring some snacks and some drinks in our suitcase when we used to fly or travel by Eurostar, but now we drive, we actually visiting the local supermarket, and on this trip we did our first visit to Costco. We could use our UK membership card and we ended up getting like big pallets of water, pop, juice for our whole group to share, and that has dramatically reduced the amount of money we spend each day in the park. As someone living with a disability, I immediately get 25% off any of the annual passes if I buy it at the gate. So on this trip, I went, bought it at the gate on our first day, and then it was valid for the rest of the week. I just had to go on and log in which day I would be in the park on the app. And that immediately gets me discount on the restaurants, the shops, but every discount massively adds up and helps save a good amount of money throughout an entire trip. Now, one of the biggest perks of having an annual pass is getting invited to their events. We got to go when Avengers Campus opened. We got to go the day before it opened to the public, and it was just annual pass holders. I got to take in Felix as a +1 as my carer. And it was great. It was empty, it was quiet. We could do everything in so much detail and take it all in. And that's a huge perk. There are multiple events throughout the years. So they have like a Christmas one, a Halloween one, and they're so much fun. Another tip is for anyone that uses a catheter. So I self-catheterize. Their disabled cubicles are within the standard male and female toilets. Now I typically travel with Felix, and they have said Felix can go in with me to give me a hand, but normally the queue is very long, and they do say you can go straight ahead and use the disabled cubicle, which is normally like right at the end. But when you've got a line of 20 plus women and children all speaking different languages, it can get quite funny. And I don't always need help, so sometimes I'll go in on my own. But if I do, we've learnt to pull out the companion toilet. There's a great one near Tower of Terror in the Walt Disney Studios. And in the Disneyland park, there is one on Main Street inside the like interior corridors down the side, because I can get both my chair, myself and Felix in, and even Fliss. Their toilets have automatic flushes, which is very problematic when you're trying to self-catheterize because it's a big infection risk. So I always carry a spare change of clothes with me, and therefore I need either Felix or Fliss with me to help me get changed. Last tip is prepping your equipment. Now, I use a smooth one, which is a rear powered attachment, and I have no issue charging that in either a Disney or an offsite hotel. But we've gone with friends in the past and they had to charge that at the hotel reception, which if you're in a Disney hotel, they have a medicine fridge in like their storage unit because there's not fridges in the rooms, and they have plugs in there where you can charge your equipment that it isn't accessible by the public. In the Radisson, there's a fridge in the room, which is much easier for me because if I need medication in the night, Felix hasn't got to sprint all the way back down to the reception to get it. And depending on what plug you bring and what battery types, you may be able to do it in the room. But I did check with the Radisson and they would charge it in their luggage room if you're not able to. But just check beforehand with your manufacturer, just so you know how you're going to be charging it when you get there. You don't get to your room, put it on charge overnight, expecting to go in for a full day at the parks, and it's not charged. We have been in Disneyland Paris when it is 40 degrees, and we had to make sure that nothing became loose on my wheelchair because obviously the heat expands the metal. Literally go from that to pouring rain and very cold quite quickly. So I always carry a bundle bean poncho, kind of cover the top of my lap, and we'll go over the back of my wheelchair as well, so it keeps the top of my backrest cushion dry. And where that goes over my backpack on the back of my chair, it means any water kind of runs off and doesn't go in my Smooth One attachment. And any water that does run down, it kind of hits the wheel rather than the power unit. And if I do have my oxygen concentrator clipped on the back of my chair as well, it keeps that perfectly dry. Their picnic blanket was super handy on this trip as well. And this is the first time we've used it. We did use it while waiting for the fireworks for some of our able-bodied group members to sit on and snack on some popcorn. It was an emergency dog bed for Fliss. We've used it, so Marley and our group, we needed to get from where we were to the bus stop in the pouring rain. I had my bundle bean cozy over my legs. She had a blanket, but it didn't have any waterproof covering on, so she wrapped it around her legs and it kept her dry. And I also used it to lie down on a bench when I had a migraine. Now, Lissy, what are your top tips for visiting Disneyland Paris? You had the best week of your entire life, didn't you? You had so much fun. So, for assistance dog owners, my first tip would be to take your identification. So for Fliss, it was the yellow Assistance Dogs UK little identification booklet that had all her information, Canine Partners information, microchip, the kind of laws on assistance dogs in the UK, and that came in very handy. So when we were in the parks, you're typically not asked to show any ID, but they do offer a system now where I went to City Hall on our first day and they gave us a little tag just to go around her collar, which meant cast members could easily see that her ID had been checked and she's not a fake assistance dog. Again, that's not mandatory, you don't have to do it, but I just did it for peace of mind so we wouldn't get questioned while out and about and getting on attractions. And we just popped it on your collar. We did lose it somewhere through the trip when we changed collars, so we went back to City Hall and they gave us a new one. And because we stayed off site, we did have to show the yellow book when we checked in, when we went to Costco and to the supermarket. But again, as soon as you showed it, they were absolutely fine. So I just kept it in my treat bag. That is my second tip, is to take a good treat bag. So I had a small water bowl, treats, poo bags, the yellow ID book, and also any bits and bobs I needed in there. and they were handy at all times. Another thing was to take toys, and Fliz had plenty of toys in the room that she could choose from, her ball being her favourite, which I'm pretty sure you saw her packing. But also a Kong. We would take one into the parks each day, so either when I was having a rest or when we were watching a show, things like that, Fliss could have some quiet time. And you being a Labrador meant the Kong would never last very long. So what we did was each night we had to put ice packs into the Radisson freezer. And they also let us fill Fliss's Kong up and put it in with ice packs each night, so they were frozen. And the next day she had a frozen Kong, which was good because it was warm, so it kept her cool. But it also meant the Kong lasted significantly longer. And our last tip is to figure out the toilet spots. There are so many places Fliss could go to the toilet, both in Disneyland Paris, the studios, or kind of the surrounding areas in the village. They just ask that you kind of go to the outskirts and not in the main central areas where they've got a pretty flower arrangement. They don't want you trampling all over it. So one of her favourite spots was Fantasia Gardens, outside the Pink Hotel that you go in to then go into the main park. There was a spot near Thunder Mountain that was next to a smoking area, but that had a good amount of grass and kind of bush and bark and all different things. So there's lots of areas. It just took us a day or so to figure out which ones Fliss liked the best. But the Radisson Blue was perfect because there was so much grass. It's surrounded by a golf course. So Fliss had almost too many toilet spaces to choose from. Whereas when we stayed at the Newport Bay, which is a Disney hotel, the first room they gave us meant that to get Fliss out for the toilet would be going in 2 lifts, coming all the way out to the main bit outside the Disney Lake. And to get to grass, it was almost a 10-minute walk, which if you're bursting, nobody wants to do. So they then moved us to a room which had a door opening out to some grass, and she could just go right there in the night, which was great. But it was definitely a little bit harder in a Disney hotel, whereas the Radisson Blue, our room was right by the lift. We had to go down 1 floor, and the grass was right outside the door, which meant she could also go before and after we got on their shuttle bus.
Thank you so much for watching. I really hope hearing some of our top tips and our reflections on our trip to Disneyland Paris was really helpful. I think something that really made the trip was going with friends.
Oh my God,
It was such a good group, and I think if you can get a nice group of you together, it just makes the whole trip, because you can split off or you can all do things together, and you're experiencing everyone else's joy and magic at different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, we highly recommend it. We'll be going back.
Yes.
If you have any further questions for us, do let us know in the comments. But if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd hit subscribe, and I'll see you very soon for another video. See you later.